For more than 100 years, Field & Stream has prided itself on telling the best hunting and fishing stories, in print, online, and through video. Now, we're bringing our blend of storytelling to podcasts. If we do our job right, then listening to or watching this podcast will feel like you're at a familiar hunting or fishing camp. We'll talk gear, we'll trade tips, we'll discuss the news, we'll play some games, and we'll do our fair share of bullshitting. Best of all, we'll tell stories, because telling stories is what Field & Stream does better than anyone else. I'm your host, Colin Kearns. Welcome to the Field & Stream podcast. Welcome to the Field & Stream podcast, a storytelling show about opening day roosters, heirloom shotguns, and corner crossing with the Supreme Court's approval. On today's show, Phil Bourjaily talks about the pheasant opener, Ryan Chelius runs us through the best fly rods of 2025, Travis Hall breaks down two big conservation stories, and Mr. Bourjaily returns to read one of the best stories of the century. I'm your host, Colin Kearns. Let's get into it. Welcome to The Season, the part of the show where I'm joined by a guest to talk about a stretch of the hunting and fishing calendar that's happening right now. And our topic for the season this week is pheasants, and my guest is Field & Stream Shotguns columnist and our resident upland expert, and possibly his German short-hair pointer Zeke, Phil Bourjaily. Phil, welcome to the Field & Stream podcast.
Thank you.
It's good to see you.
Likewise.
Now, I want to begin this conversation by reading something you wrote that I think captures pheasant season and why I wanted to talk to you for this segment. Once I started hunting pheasants, I didn't want to do much else until the season ended. I'm still that way. No matter where I've been or how many ducks and doves I've shot before that first pheasant hunt, opening day still marks the beginning of the main event. It's like stepping through a portal into a place where I'll spend the next 70-odd days. I won't hunt every one of those days, and sometimes I might chase ducks and geese, but if I'm not shooting pheasants, I'm thinking about hunting them, wishing I were hunting them, or getting work done so I can hunt them. That about sums it up pretty nicely, I think, Phil.
It does. And if my wife were here, there would be, holidays get in the way of pheasant season. I suggested once that the only solution for marital bliss would be if we moved to another hemisphere, where Christmas could be in the summer. But
how did that go over?
Not well.
Yeah.
Well, but then I mentioned that you can go to the beach in Argentina on Christmas Day, and she's like, "Well, maybe," but so I know it would have its advantages. But yeah, I pretty much
your love for pheasant season begin.
I went with my dad and shot that first bird, and it was just it really was life changing in terms of altering the trajectory of what I do and altering the trajectory of that pheasant. But also, I would not be here today. I'd be doing something else. I don't know what.
Yeah.
And but it really, from that moment on, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah. And I know you love turkeys, you love ducks, you love geese, you love to hunt doves, but is there something about pheasants that just still gets you? Like what is it about that bird and this season?
Well, this season, it is because people say sometimes total strangers will let me walk on their land, which is just still amazes me. It's a feeling of freedom, of being able to go where I want. I like that a lot. It's getting harder to find. The bird itself, I love pheasants because especially when you hunt them with the dog, and you know that the dog is on a bird. And then you're going to, if the dog points or flushes gets birdie, whatever, and you're about to see one. And then there's that instant where you're wondering, is it a hen or a rooster? And you don't get that with any other upland bird. It's just that, quail or grouse or whatever, you can start shooting as soon as but the pheasants, there's that suspense, and then there's that extra suspense. And then all of a sudden there it is. And a rooster, they're like, 3 feet long, and
Sure.
This big gaudy bird comes out of nowhere. Because they can hide. I remember seeing one hiding on the ground once, which you hardly ever see. And it is like squished itself flat like a flounder. it's so odd that this bird from another continent can hide so easily here. It's just kind of they're a marvel, and I don't even know if we deserve them. They live where we made the land inhospitable for all the native birds, for the
Hmm.
prairie chickens and things that lived here, and then they moved right in, and we owe them a lot for that. Um, and then if you shoot a pheasant, it's dinner. I like that too. You shoot a quail, it's like lunch maybe for one. Pheasant will feed two people. So so I like that, and I don't
Well,
need to
now I
shoot a
gotta
lot of
ask,
birds. I just
what's your favorite way to cook a pheasant? I gotta ask that now.
I pick it and roast it. Uh,
Hmm.
if it's not too shot up, that's still my favorite. If you don't dry it out, it's just wonderful. We never get tired of it.
Yeah.
Um, there are other, I'll if it is shot up, I'll take the breasts and fry them. Uh, but a whole bird, a really nice whole bird, especially late in the season when they get fat and big, they're great. Uh, and I do take the time to pick my birds, and I've gotten down so I've done enough of them now that I can do it pretty fast. But
That's
so
great.
that is my favorite.
Now, in that column that I just read the passage from, you wrote a lot about how much pheasant openers have changed over the years, over the decades, from
Hmm.
maybe almost like kind of a unofficial national holiday, whereas this big communal event, and now they're, at least in your neck of the woods, maybe a little quieter. Do you miss that hoopla, or like does the kind of more modern style kind of suit you a little better?
Well, I for me, it's always about the hunting. I'm not that I'm antisocial. I'm not. But like there's hunting and then there's sociability. And
Uh-huh.
so the big family reunion was never really a thing for me. Um, I just like to go hunting. But I miss it because we don't have it because we don't have birds. We don't have it for the worst reason, which is that we don't have birds.
Yeah.
In other places, it's still a big event. It was here. I mean, we were. I remember back in the pre-internet days when people didn't post on social media, so you just hear like word of mouth what celebrities were in town hunting. Like Kirk Gibson from the Dodgers would be in Williamsburg, Iowa, which is right near where I lived, because that was like it was like not the pheasant capital, but one of the pheasant capitals of the country. And it was a I
Hmm.
liked I liked feeling like, it was like living in Stuttgart, Arkansas for ducks or something. I liked feeling like
Hmm.
I lived at ground zero for pheasants. That was cool. And there was a lot of places to hunt. I actually have, the hunting we have now, at least, it's just two of us that usually go, or sometimes just me, is very good.
Hmm.
Often I've had some really good seasons lately. I don't know how long it will last. That's what I don't like about modern hunting. I don't mind that there's not as many people out to, I can get on places, but I also feel like I'm part of something that is at least around here ending. And that makes me sad because, you know, I, I always liked hunting pheasants because I felt like they were a they were an outgrowth of a healthy landscape,
Hmm.
of the bounty of a healthy landscape, and we have less and less of that, and it's getting harder and harder to find. So um, that's what I like about it. You
Hmm.
um, and and then there's still birds. Actually, this year in Iowa, we have, because of the way the weather has been, and some other things. We're supposed to have our best hunting in 20 years, which is great. This is actually the
That's
100th year of pheasant hunting in Iowa. And, people don't talk about Iowa much anymore like they used to. It's all South Dakota and the North Dakota. But we were, you know, we were right up there with South Dakota for many, many years. And
What does a
but this is
typical pheasant hunt look like for you? An Iowa pheasant hunt?
typical Iowa pheasant hunt for me. Usually I try to get some work done. I try to work and hunt at the same time in the same day. And it doesn't really work very well for either one, but I'll try to get some stuff done until about 10 o'clock. And then either by myself or with my friend Rick, who I often hunt with, a couple other people I go with, we will go hunt somewhere, usually a set aside field for, maybe 4 or 5 hours.
Hmm.
Rick has a Springer. I have a short hair. I'm right. He's wrong, but whatever. And, So we don't hunt we rarely hunt together. We'll split up. Each of us follow our own dogs, and then if there's some kind of hammer and anvil maneuver we need to make, we'll team up on that. But it's kind of two parallel hunts. It's really like two of us going hunting by ourselves, but together. It's fun. Um, and I go a lot, never for very long. Sometimes I'll hunt all day if someone comes in to hunt with me.
Hmm.
And if I'm averaging a bird a day, a bird a trip, that's good. And some years it's a little more than that, and that's not a lot. I mean, there's people who shoot a lot more birds, but that's more than enough for me. And
Hmm.
I have some, so that's what it looks like for me. Uh,
Nice, nice.
I'm lucky that I still don't have to go more than half hour or so from town to find birds.
Yeah. What is your advice when it comes to seeking permission from landowners to hunt their property? What are some tips you can give other hunters out there who?
You know, honestly, and it's funny you mentioned that because public hunting is it's in right now.
Hmm.
I keep wanting to go shoot a public rooster. I haven't done it in a few years now. Uh, and the public areas here still get a lot of people,
Hmm.
and the private land places that I would have thought back in the day would have had people hunting them. I remember I brought a friend out to this field on opening day, and we were it's up on a hill. It's like some set aside grass up on a hill, and we were watching birds fly into it, like pheasants fly into it. And I was thinking, it was one of those, and there's nobody there. And I was thinking, you know, do I have the day wrong? This is opening day, right? And so there's a lot of opportunity, at least around here for hunting on private ground. And really, the hard part is finding the farmer.
Hmm.
So many places are farmed by big operations now that finding the farmer is not to me is the hard part. Getting permission
Hmm.
tends to be pretty easy.
Okay.
Just now, and I know that all these stories that we used to read and write uh, say go talk about crop prices and stuff, but I'm a town guy. I'm pretty obviously a town guy. I'm not going to come. So if I come knock on your door, I usually just say pretty much, "This is who I am." Tell them my name, tell them where I live, ask if I can hunt. Most of the time, they say yes. Not always, and then we might talk about crops or the weather or whatever. But I feel like I don't want to waste their time. I know that for some people, especially your old school farmers, etiquette wise, you got to talk for 20 minutes about whatever before you bring up whatever
Yeah.
you're talking about. I I just feel funny doing that, and I make sure I remember them at the end of the season. I think I mentioned my friend Rick who brings cheese back from Wisconsin, blocks of cheese. He is known as the cheese man locally.
And are you the cookie man?
I can be the chocolate man. I am often the Casey's General Store, which is our convenience store out here, a gift card
Oh,
man. That's a good one
nice.
because they're always at Casey's and they always want gas or pizza or beer or whatever. I can be the
Hmm.
beer man. I'm whatever whatever it is. It is nowhere near what hunting is worth to me.
Hmm.
But I can't pay that. It's because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
but they like to be remembered, and I
That's
was
great.
that's really what and some of them become friends, and then it's not even about beer or cheese or cookies or anything. It's just like they're your friends.
Yeah. That's really cool.
I'm
Um,
lucky that I still live in a place where we can do that.
yeah. Yeah. You wrote about the 10 toughest wing shots for filmstream.com,
Hmm.
and one of those was the straightaway pheasant. And you wrote,
Hmm.
straightaway pheasant seems like an odd choice for one of the toughest shots in wing shooting, but it's one we should all be 100% on, and nobody is. It's deceptively difficult. So, why is this shot deceptively difficult?
It is hard because it's just like a straightaway in trap shooting. It takes a small move with the gun
Hmm.
to get on a straightaway bird. We're usually excited. Um, my, I would revise that now to say that it's the toughest shot because it is a hard way to kill a bird cleanly.
Hmm.
And so I don't even try long straightaways anymore. If a bird if it's more than if it's inside 30 yards, I'll kill it
Hmm.
because you have enough pattern density on it. But a bird going straight away from you doesn't give you a whole lot to shoot at. And there's not, it's a long way to the vitals from the back end of the bird. You'll probably break a wing. It will hit the ground running. Yet
Hmm.
dogs get most of them, but they don't get all of them. And I hate losing birds, and pheasants are easy birds to lose. So to me, it's, revisiting that, it's a hard shot because it's not a great killing shot unless you're close. And so I just, if it's farther than that, I will, especially in heavy cover, I'll just let them go.
Um, how much of your enjoyment of pheasant season comes from getting to hunt with Zeke or dogs in general?
All of it.
All of
Me-
it.
no, I um when you own a bird dog, it doesn't have to be the best dog. Zeke is eating something. It doesn't have to be the best dog, but it's your dog, and you want to go with it.
Mhm.
You want to hunt with them. I feel bad leaving Zeke at home to go duck hunting. I do it. Now that's mitigated by the fact that Zeke is a great couch potato also. So if I leave him at home, he'll sleep. He's fine.
Yeah.
Um,
What
but
else can
no,
you tell
I'm with
listeners
you.
about Zeke? Give listeners a sense of what kind of dog Zeke is.
Uh, Zeke is the first dog I spent what is for me anyway serious money on, and it turns out that like buying from good bloodlines really helps a lot. He is a terrific hunter. He he points birds. He finds cripples. He's very biddable.
Hmm.
He wants to hunt for me, even though he ranges some. He has the idea that we're hunting together. Uh, the retrieving thing we're working on, but still at age 6. But he's really just a joy to hunt with. Uh, they all are in their own way, but he's really, really, really good at the field. He does not bump many birds, which is easy to do with pheasants. And I probably shoot a higher percentage of the birds I shoot are pointed with Zeke than with any of my other dogs. He's really, really good.
Awesome.
At the same time, he's a great house dog.
Hmm.
And as I have written, he's a lap dog. Um, and he waits. He knows that the rule at our house is you cannot be on the couch unless we're on the couch.
Gotcha.
And so there'll be times when he's just like sitting there in the living room waiting, like, come on, let's go. I want,
Sit down.
yeah, sit down now. And then we will sit down, and my wife and I will compete at the Wordle and other word games, and he will sit on the couch.
That's great.
He's a fun dog.
All
He's really
yeah. Um, in all of your hunting life, Phil, what's your favorite pheasant gun to hunt with?
my favorite pheasant gun to hunt with. There's been so many. I have a Ruger Gold Label side by side that Ruger made for only a very short time
Hmm.
that that I enjoy hunting with. It's one of those guns that it's appreciated. It's worth about. Yeah, Ruger gave me a really good deal on it. I actually bought it with the proceeds. I won a gun at SHOT Show 2005. I put my business card in. This is why I don't gamble in Las Vegas. Is because I that SHOT Show I dropped like 2 business cards in drawings, and I won like Swarovski binocular and a Rossini shotgun,
Hmm.
like $3,000 for the stuff in
Wow.
2005 money. I know, right? So like, why play the slot machines? And I haven't won
Seriously.
anything since, but I'm way ahead in life. So anyway, I sold that gun. I bought the Gold Label, which then Ruger stopped making, and it immediately like tripled in value. So it's a gun I don't hunt with as much as I should, but I really enjoy that. It is a light 12 gauge, which suits my um, you know suits my opinion of what a pheasant gun should be. If I had to kill pheasants for money, I
Hmm.
would shoot my Benelli. But
Okay.
fortunately, I don't have to shoot pheasants for money. Um, so that gun is one that shoot a Caesar Guarini 20 gauge over under quite a bit, just because I like to carry it, and
Hmm.
I've, it's got some scars on it from when I dropped it on some rocks that aren't there anymore. Unfortunately, trying to help Zeke catch a cripple when he was a puppy, which we did catch. So that gun is banged up enough that I don't care what happens to it. So I take that a lot. Um, so I don't have one favorite. I've had shot a lot of different pheasants with a lot of different guns, and I have this year will be another different one. I have found an old 1990s vintage Beretta 686 over under that I'm excited about hunting with this year.
Sweet. Um, Now, as much as I know you look forward to the beginning of pheasant season, I also know, and I think your readers know this, that you also love the final week too. Um,
I do.
what do you enjoy hunting more, the opener or the closer of pheasant season?
Well, I'll tell you, this year I won't be here for the opener. I'll be in Canada. So
Oh, okay.
that answers that question. And there's been years I've duck hunted on the pheasant opener, which again used to be. I mean, the local sporting goods store would open at 5:30 on opening morning of pheasant season and have a pancake breakfast, and there'd be 100 people in there. Uh, and that just doesn't happen anymore. So opening day is like whenever I decide to go.
Hmm.
And then and once I start going, I don't want to stop. Uh, it's that last 10 days. We close on January 10th, uh, which is perfect. Because because otherwise, you have the holidays and then New Year's, and then it'd be over, which is
Yeah.
how it used to be. And then the state extended it to that January 10th weekend, which is so I've got 10 days to hunt, and I try to go as many unless it's just too cold, which it can be, or a couple of years we've been iced out. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I'll go almost every one of those days, and I love
Because
them. I love the
your philosophy is
oh,
that
yeah.
by the end of the season, you want to be glad it's over. You want to have hunted so hard at the end, you want to be glad it's over.
I do. I want, and either you go out on a bang, which is great,
Uh huh.
or sometimes if it's like real mild, those last days can be very, very frustrating, and then you're just glad it's
Yeah.
over because it's frustrating. So one way or another, I'm
Yeah.
gonna see it out, and I'll go on the last day. I think the last time I didn't go on the last day was when we were iced in, and we had tried hunting like right up until the 7th or 8th, I think, and it was just dumb. I mean, hunting was just dumb. We killed one bird, and but other than that, I will always be out on the last day.
Gotcha. Well, I know the last day is still a ways off. So in the meantime, I hope you have a great opener and a great season. And
Thank you.
I speak for Field and Stream fans when I say I can't wait to hear the stories that come from your pheasant season.
Well, thank you very much, Colin.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil. Welcome to Bullet Points, our news segment of the podcast, where associate editor and our resident news hound, Travis Hall, walks us through some of the bigger headlines in the outdoor world. Travis, welcome back to the podcast, buddy.
Thanks, Colin.
How you doing?
Good to be back here. Doing good. Doing
Good.
good.
Good. So we've got a pair of stories today, kind of one good, one bad. But let's start with the good news, and this is the more recent story too. A bit of a victory for outdoorsmen, especially in your neck of the woods out in Montana, for public land. Big Supreme Court uh, announcement decision not to accept an appeal from a ranch owner in Wyoming about dispute over corner crossing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely cause for celebration for public land hunters here. So this is the corner crossing case, which kind of dates back several years now. I think back to 2021, when originally how it started was there were 4 out-of-state hunters from Missouri that went
Hmm.
to Wyoming to hunt for elk and mule deer on public land. And they did what's known as corner crossing. So they were
Yeah, can you say?
crossing.
Yeah, can you explain that a little bit for listeners if they're unfamiliar?
Yeah, yeah. So the way this works is in the West, there's a lot of checkerboarded land,
Uh-huh.
which is kind of, it looks like a checkerboard on a map, and you have private parcels interspersed with public. Um, but in order to cross, stay on the public, hunters will cross at the corner of where the 2 public parcels meet. Um, and sometimes that involves a ladder to go up and over, but usually never setting foot on the private property.
Right.
Hmm.
And these Missouri hunters, they brought a ladder with them, right? to do
I
this?
believe so.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they wrote their own ladder for this.
And it's really become a hot button issue over the years. It's like, where can you give a bit more context of why, landowners were so stubborn and bullish on this?
Yeah. If you just look at the court cases, like this one in Wyoming, the justification that they used for charging these guys with trespass was that, if the public is able to access this public land that's enmeshed with their private, then it devalues their property somehow.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so that's,
Sounds like a lot of bullshit to me. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, and that's public land. We should have access to it.
Absolutely. Now, and we should say on our other Field and Stream podcast, Legends of the Wild, Sam Solholt talks with Devin O'Day from BHA at length on this topic, and it's a really good episode, and they go really into depth on this, so listeners should check that out. But this is definitely cause for celebration, right? For hunters, especially out west.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that it works here is this was the Supreme Court denying the landowner's appeal. Uh, and it was what he was appealing was a 10th Circuit decision,
Mm-hmm.
which the 10th Circuit has jurisdiction over 6 states, mostly in the West. So this really does, for generations to come, like this legalizes corner crossing in those 6 states.
Yeah. Yeah.
Within that circuit, but it's still kind of questionable in states outside of the 10th, which is like in Montana where I'm at. That's the 9th Circuit. So that's going to play out in the months and years to come.
Yeah. How much land did this decision open up to hunters and anglers?
Yeah, most of the figures that I've seen say about 3.5 million acres of what they call corner locked land
Mm-hmm.
in that within that 10th Circuit that is now open to access.
That's a lot of land.
It is.
Yeah. And I'm sure lots of good hunting to be had on that land. So
Definitely.
so yeah, this really did feel like a nice win. It's a refreshing bit of good news for outdoorsmen to hear, especially because it's feels like it's just been for years now a nonstop battle on keeping these lands public, and that's maybe a good segue into our other story that we wanted to talk on, which is not so rosy as this one about the Ambler Road. Can you set this one up for us?
Yeah, totally. So the Ambler Road, this first got on my radar back in I think 2023.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a 211-mile proposed a mining road
Mm-hmm.
through the Arctic. This is north of the Arctic Circle in the Brooks Range,
Mm-hmm.
and it would go through some of the best caribou hunting in Alaska, and cross I think 11 major rivers with some of the best wilderness fishing in Alaska. So that's what the road is, and at this point, it's it hasn't been they haven't broken ground on it. But so back in June of 24, the BLM issued a record of decision that denied a key permit for this road.
Mm-hmm.
So hunters and anglers were really celebrating at that point. They kind of thought this was the end of it. The Ambler Road had kind of been squashed, but it came back up again earlier this month. President Trump had a press conference in the Oval Office with Secretary of Interior Doug Burgum,
Mm-hmm.
and they announced that through an executive order, they are expediting this road, moving full steam ahead, and they're going to break ground by the spring.
That's insane. It's just the impacts of this road are going to be tremendous. I mean, it's they're going to be permanent, right?
Yeah, they would be. And I should say, I mean, it's not a done deal. There are a lot of impediments still standing in the way of even this executive order. But yeah, you're talking about a big industrial mining road through just pristine, kind of undisturbed wilderness.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And what
So
kind of are there any expectations or estimates on what like traffic on this road could be if it were built?
yeah, yeah, I did see one figure that said about 168 industrial trips per day.
Hmm.
So you can imagine big mining rigs and um,
Yeah, yeah. So
you're not talking about just like your typical
y-
traffic. This is
yeah,
the equipment.
this won't be a bunch of Priuses driving down the road. Yeah. Now you mentioned some of the legal impediments that could get in the way of this executive order. Can you talk us through some of those?
Yeah, so that's all, kind of speculative, but first of all, there are at least two tribal corporations that own land along this route.
Hmm.
So those are kind of like, sovereign entities, tribal entities that do have a say in whether or not this happens.
Hmm.
And, some of the shareholders within those tribal corporations have expressed concerns about the Ambler Road over the years. So there's no guarantee that they'll sign off on that.
Hmm.
Um, You've also got, like I said, that this road would cross 11 major rivers, and some of those have wild and scenic status from the
Hmm.
federal government, which gives an added layer of protection. That's another impediment that they would have to
Yeah,
somehow
yeah.
get across.
Um, Question for you. How would this differ from the Dalton Highway, which is another iconic highway that runs through Alaska? And it's something many moons ago, Eddie Nickens wrote an amazing story about that's called The Last Wild Road, that people can read on filmstream.com. But how would the Ambler Road differ from the Dalton Highway?
Yeah, that's a really important distinction to make. So the Dalton Highway is open to public access,
Hmm.
and like you mentioned, Eddie Nickens wrote that amazing story. But hunters will use that road to kind of get into some really good caribou hunting, and it's kind of an asset to a certain extent for
Hmm.
hunters looking to access that area by road. But this Ambler Road would not be open to public travel. It would be exclusive to these foreign-owned companies that want to build this road and do this mining work.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
it would shut the public out.
Yeah, great. But the public would pay for it, I assume, right? Or at least the public in Alaska.
Yeah, that's one thing that I have seen. A lot of the figures say that this would cost about $2 billion, and the state of Alaska would be on the hook for that. I'm assuming some taxpayer dollars for sure.
Wow. All right. Well, this is a story I know you're going to continue to report and stay on top of. But in the meantime, if people want to weigh in or learn more about this, where can they go?
Yeah, I would suggest hunters and anglers for the Brooks Range.
Hmm.
Go to their website, and I think it's just hunters and anglers for the brooksrange.com. But it's a coalition of like 90 some odd hunting and fishing brands and conservation orgs, and anytime there's any action to be taken, they've got a form that you can kind of fill out and let your voice be heard through that way. And they also have just a lot of great resources to learn about what's in this area, from the Western Arctic caribou herd to the all the amazing fishing that's there,
Yeah.
the waterfowl hunting and everything.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, thanks for breaking down these stories for us. And keep on reporting, buddy. And we will talk to you next time. Thanks a lot, Travis.
Dude, thanks, Colin.
Welcome to Gearing Up, the segment of the Field and Stream podcast where we talk about, you guessed it, gear. Today, I'm joined by senior editor Ryan Chelius, and we're going to talk about the fly rod test that is on fieldandstream.com. Mainly, I want to talk about this test because I was at the first fly rod test we did a couple years ago, but I couldn't make this one, and I'm very still jealous and bitter that I didn't get to come. So the next best thing is getting to talk about the test with the guy who ran it. Ryan, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and not to rub it in, but it was a great time.
Yeah. So I heard fish were caught. Amazing fly rods were tested. So yeah, I guess in short, give us a sense of kind of paint the scene for what the test is like, what you guys look for, where you go, where you conducted the test, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Fly rods are unique in a way, compared to our other temple tests. Like you think of shotguns, rifles, especially compound bows that release new flagship models every single year. Is not the case with fly rods. They're closer to more close to optics, where you get a new rod every few years from a
Yeah.
major manufacturer. So as far as like our testing lineup, we don't get to, we can't call in 15 new rods because that's not the case. But so we use rods from the past and just what we think is the best on the market, and then what we can get, obviously, that's new, or rods we might have missed. So that was the case for this year. And then obviously I live in Colorado, but I came back to New York to go up with executive editor Dave Hurteau to the West Branch of the Delaware River, which,
Yeah.
as you know, is kind of the unofficial home waters of Field and Stream. And,
Yeah, a lot of history but with the brand on that river that goes back decades. So yeah, it's a special place.
yeah, the perfect spot to do it. So as far as like the test itself, we, usually plan to 2 to 3 days. And the first day is usually set up on the lawn, and we make shooting lanes, as we call them, to test what we call castability. And that's really just accuracy and distance. And really what you're looking for, it's a weird part of the test, because the only thing you can really see is power and how far a rod can cast. But it's fun part, and you can see who can vomit. And Dave is an unbelievable caster and can throw 90 feet like it's nothing.
Yeah,
Um,
he's not the person you want to follow
yeah,
on the casting test, because he can cast farther than you. Just
Yeah,
leave it at that.
there's no way. Yeah, exactly. So that's a cool part. We set up some targets to see accuracy, get the distance, we make notes, but then the real fun comes when we go on the river. And this test was cool because in the past we took, like when you were there, our first test, I think we took like the top 7 or 8 rods down and kind of compared them, fish for a half hour, switch it up. But this year we decided to take every single rod down and literally compare them side by side by side. And that was really good to see the differences, because so much of the differences between these rods are so subtle that if you don't have it side by side, you can't notice it. So on the water, we're looking for things like line management is a huge one. How well does this line, how well does this rod control line? How well does it mend? How can it kick out line? Can it land? Can it land a dry fly really softly? Does it have the feel? All of those things we're looking for. So it's really cool to see that. And then we, switch up the techniques from throwing streamers to nymphs to dry flies. So it's a cool test, and it's fun to get it out on the water. And when we're lucky like we were this year, we got catch a few fish too. So that was cool.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right, because it is fun to like go out in the lawn and just bomb lines and see how far you can cast. And these rods today, like the technology is amazing, because like they really can cast far. Even, we'll get into some of the winners in a little bit, but like, for example, the Orvis Clearwater, it's a $300 rod. That thing can, launch line. But
Yeah.
once you take them on the water, like that's where these things like they come alive, and it can be really eye opening. You're like, one rod that you thought would be a front runner just on the casting, the lawn portion of the test. Once you get in the water, you're like, this is fine, but
Yeah.
another rod really shines. So it's
Totally.
really cool to do. Okay, so let's talk about some of the top performing rods, and as you mentioned, like, because some of these rods have been around for a couple years, but then there were a handful that were new for 2025. And so for that reason, we, in our award categories, we had a best overall rod, and that was given to the rod no matter what year it came out. That's the best of the test. But given that we wanted to put some spotlight on the brand new rods for best for that came out this year, we added a category, best for 2025. Talk me through the rod that won that award was the Douglas Sky G. So what did you guys love about that one?
Yeah, and to just give a little more clarity on that, the Sky G, it came out a few years ago, but it was new for our test. Like we missed it the first time around.
Right.
So that wasn't, it's not that it wasn't new for 25, but it was new for our test in 2025. But then as far as the rod itself, I mean, when you talk about a best overall category or a best in the test, I mean, in fly rods, you're just looking for the rod that is versatile and can do everything. That's what this rod was. I mean, it's super lightweight. It's super comfortable in hand. It can throw long casts, but it also can drop a dry fly 30 feet. Because like you said, on the lawn, you can cast to 80, 90 feet, but you get on the river and a brown trout's rising, 35 feet in front of you, you don't need to do that. And to have a rod that can do both is incredible. It kicks the line super well, has great feel to it. It's just everything you need in a fly rod. And Dave's a bit of a dry fly purist, so he didn't switch to the bobber. But I have no shame in putting a bobber on my rod.
For you.
When I took the Sky G and I threw a bobber on, and man, it bends so well. It controls the line, and I hooked 2 fish like immediately and landed them. It's just a great overall rod, and it's everything you need in a do-it-all rod. And I will say, like, as far as like price wise, it is worth the premium category. So many rods aren't, and you can get more value. But if you are looking for something that can do it and it can throw streamers, so yeah, it checked all those boxes for us, and it did it well. Yeah.
Real quick aside, last time I went fishing with Dave, he was dry fly fishing only, of course. And at some point I was like, I'm going to tie on a nymph. I'm going to put on a copper john. And he's like, what's that? I'm like, a copper john? It's like one of the most famous nymphs there is.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I've never heard of one. I was like, oh, come on.
That sums up Dave. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the best overall winner for the second test in a row went to the Sage R8 core. I was there first at the test where this rod won for the first time. So I have a, I know why it won then, but I assume fair to say it still holds up a few years later.
Yeah, I mean, this is just like the best trout rod out there, in my opinion, Dave's opinion. It seems like you're in the same boat. It does all the things I just talked about the Sky G doing, but it does it even more effortlessly. And that's just something, that is just incredible. It just throws line easy. It mends easy. It just does everything perfect. And it feels so great in the hand. It's so well balanced.
Yeah.
We just love it. And it performed better on the casting lawn. It was the furthest casting rod. It caught fish. It just did everything great. And not to take away from the Douglas rod, but it definitely beat it out. And it's just an impressive rod. And it's really impressive that even after a few years, it's still, at the top of the list, because there's been some good models that come out.
Now, as I recall, Ryan, out of the goodness of my heart, I loaned you guys my own personal Sage R8 core for the test, and several months ago. I still haven't seen it back. Any idea of when I can expect to get it back?
I'm not sure I remember that actually, but I still got it. I fished with it all summer. It's so great. I've got it in Colorado, and I've kind of been procrastinating, waiting for your message for it back.
Yeah.
But
It's yours for the rest of the season. You can send it back in the winter. When your fly season's over. But enjoy it. But just know that I haven't forgotten about it.
All right.
And then we had another repeat winner in the best budget rod, and I mentioned this one earlier. It's the Orvis Clearwater. And this rod, it's essentially it's like $300. And I can remember that the first test we did, where we actually had a blind casting session where we would cast the $1,000 rods, and just to see if they really were like, if we didn't know what we were holding, if we could notice a difference. And for the most part, we did. Like, even blind, like something like the R8 core, like you knew you were casting something really special. But a standout in that test was the Clearwater, which is just, for the money, it's such a fantastic rod. And it's like, you almost have to wonder, like, is there any better budget piece of gear in fly fishing than this rod? It's awesome.
No, yeah, there's not. And I could even take that one step further. Covering gear for years now, there might not be a better piece of equipment in hunting or fishing that offers the value that rod does. Like you said, we put it up against the premium $1,000 rods, and it was not that far off, which is just incredible. I mean, it just outperformed everything in that $400 to $800 range by spades. And it's just an incredible rod. When new anglers come to me and ask, what rod should I get? And whether it's trout, whether it's redfish, whether it's steelhead, I always recommend it because you can buy it in all different weights. And
Yeah.
it's an incredible rod for the money. And I fish with it. And if you're looking just to add a backup rod, if you've got a premium, $1,000 rod already, that's your go-to, get a Clearwater just to have.
Totally.
For $300, you can't beat it. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Ryan, thanks for running us through the test and making me even more jealous and bitter that I wasn't there. But I will be there next year, I promise. And I can't wait to see what new rods we have in store for 2026. But yeah, man, thanks for coming on, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, talk to you soon. Thanks, Colin.
All right, so we've come to the final segment of the Field and Stream podcast, where we share a great story from the Field and Stream archives around the campfire. This week's story, Dad's Gun, written by Phil Bourjaily, was first published in February 2015. Phil, take it away.
My father's shotgun, like my father's interest in hunting, was almost completely worn out the first day he put it in my hands. That was the winter of 1979, still one of the snowiest, coldest ever in Iowa. My friends had gone back to school while I was snowbound. Dad, who rarely hunted anymore, said, "We could go pheasant hunting." I'd never been hunting growing up and never wanted to go, but there was nothing else to do. "Sure," I said. He grabbed his Auto 5 and handed me the Beretta ASEL my mother had given him as a gift several years earlier. A handmade box lock over-under built in the 50s and 60s in that same shop that crafts the Beretta's high-grade SO side locks. The gun had seen better days. Its stock was cracked through and scratched all over. Forend gouged and splintered. Checkering smashed flat, action was loose, ejectors bulky, the rib dented, the oil finish worn, and the bluing faded to gray spotted with rust. There was an oval hole in the stock where the silver shield for his initials had fallen out. You wouldn't know to look at the gun, but my father's serious hunting days only lasted a dozen seasons or so. During those years, he would go straight from the field to work, teaching his fall classes in muddy hunting clothes with his dog and gun out in the car. When he picked me up at school, he'd drive home by way of the marsh so he could scout ducks. He used the Beretta hard and put it away wet and dirty. The gun endured the indignities suffered by all duck guns, plus some more of Dad's devising, like the red nail-polished rear sight he painted on it for shooting deer slugs, and the scar in the forehand where he once used the gun to push down the top strand of a barbed wire fence so he could step over it. Toward the end of our hunt, after he and I had missed every shot we took, I made a long right-to-left crossing shot on a rooster that tumbled into the grass when I pulled the trigger. From that moment on, all I ever wanted to do was hunt. My father, though, wanted something else. His lost enthusiasm for hunting mirrored his dissatisfaction with everything else about his life in Iowa. Not long after that pheasant hunt, he left my mother, married a former student, and accepted a job at another university. His Beretta went with him, although he didn't use it much, a little for desert quail and doves in Arizona, and a time or two for ducks in Louisiana when he moved there. About 10 years after our first pheasant hunt, Dad hung up his 12-gauge. Age and a nagging tennis shoulder forced him to switch to a 20-gauge autoloader, an old Remington 1148 he found at a pawn shop. He sent me his old gun. I saved up until I could afford to ship the gun to Orvis, where the gunsmiths tightened, straightened, blued, refinished, filed, and glued the gun until it looked almost new. I had them open the chokes to improved cylinder and modified, so it could be my full-time pheasant gun. It was a pretty gun when I got it back, and deadly, too. When they asked what initials I wanted on the silver oval, I chose mine, not my father's. A declaration of the distance that was growing between us. He had a new family and a life that I was no part of, and I never forgave him for leaving my mother. Both of us would have liked to have been closer, I think, but neither ever found the right words to say. A few years later, I had Briley put tubes in the barrel so I could shoot steel in the gun, because like my dad and almost no one else, I hunted snipe. I remember the times when I was young and he would come home happy, wet, and tired from the Iowa river bottoms, with a bag of bedraggled, long-billed birds. My own sons will have that memory, too. It wasn't long until I took a hard fall in the field and broke the stock of another gun that it occurred to me I might want to be a little more selective about when I shot the Beretta. I have lots of other guns now and confess that Dad's gun is a safe queen. Despite the wonders worked by the Orvis shop, it still needs attention. The slender forend rattles where it is warped away from the barrels. Before I pass the gun to one of my sons, I hope to have that repaired. My mother gave me a video of my father hunting with this gun. The movie was shot to be part of a promotional short about hunting. It was filmed in 1965 when my father was almost 15 years younger than I am today. He takes the Beretta and his Weimaraner, Moon, out on a cold day of pheasant hunting on our farm. Moon points a rooster. My father shoots it. There's no sound with the film. Bird flushes silently and falls to an unheard shot. My father looks solemn throughout. The film was made just a few months after my family had set out for the Des Moines Zoo on my sister's birthday. On the way there, my father had to avoid another car that pulled onto the highway. He swerved out of our lane and into the path of an oncoming semi-truck. I was uninjured in the front seat. My first sister and her friend in the back were thrown from the car and killed. As I grew up, my father never talked to me about the accident or about my sister. We kept none of her things and had no pictures of her in the house. It was almost as if she'd never lived. Looking back now as a parent of 2 grown sons, I can only begin to imagine the grief and guilt my father felt. He kept his feelings hidden, burying them with silence and too often with alcohol. I don't know, because he never talked about it, but I think ultimately he couldn't stand his life in Iowa and had to start over. I was 7 when I first saw the movie. After it ended, I asked to see it backward. The smoking empty hull popped back into the chamber before the bird fell up off the ground and into flight. Dad and Moon backtracked out of the cold and into the warm house. I was lucky to have one last good visit from Dad just a week before he died. There's a lot I wish I had said to him, and even more I wish he had said to me. This gun is what I have left of my father, and it's not enough. What I want is to play that movie backward again and rewind the years.
Thank you. Phil, sorry. Look, listen to us. Well, that story, I mean, it's 10 years old now, from when it was first published. It's as powerful and beautiful as it was.
Thank you.
When I first read it, I can remember that story was included in a whole collection of feature stories about family and how family, in one way or another, connects to hunting and fishing. You know, there were probably a dozen stories in that issue. Yours was one of them. And I remember very vividly when it came across my desk, like how blown away I was by it. It's just such a powerful story. And I can also remember every other editor at Field and Stream, when they read it for the first time, coming by my desk or calling me and they're like, holy shit, that's a good story. And then when it was ultimately published and the issue is out, you know, that's a piece that got so many letters and notes from readers, just thanking us, thanking you for sharing it. So,
Yeah, I got more letters from that than, by far, than anything else I ever wrote.
Yeah. Well,
It's still hard after all these years, too,
yeah.
to read that one.
Yeah. Well, thank you for reading it here and sharing it. Thanks to everyone for listening and watching this episode, and we will see you next time on the Field and Stream podcast.